I've got a story to share, one that really drives home why you should always trust your instincts. When something feels off, don't ignore it, you've got to pay attention. That little voice in your head? It's often onto something, especially if you're wondering whether your partner might be stepping out on you. If your gut's screaming, do a bit of digging. That's exactly what I did, and thank goodness I followed through. I handled it the right way, and now I'm moving forward with my life. Now, let's dive into what happened. I'm absolutely floored and can't wrap my head around what's happened. I genuinely believed my girlfriend and I had something solid, almost 3 years of what felt like a true partnership. We'd have our differences, sure, but 95% of the time, we worked through them calmly, no big fights. There was love, respect, and fairness. We split chores and bills evenly and tackled life's challenges like a real team. I was convinced we were laying the foundation for a bright future together. How many guys out there have thought the exact same thing, only to be blindsided? Earlier tonight, I was wrapping up a shift at my side gig while my girlfriend went to a concert with her mom and sister. When I got back to our apartment, they were all there, chowing down on some food they'd grabbed. Her mom and sister headed out pretty soon after I walked in. Then, out of nowhere, my girlfriend announced she was going to the library room in our building to read. The library room? To read? That's not exactly her usual spot. She'd normally be curled up on the couch with a book. It struck me as odd, especially since I figured she might have had a drink or two at the concert, probably feeling a little loose. Why wasn't she buzzing with excitement, telling me all about her night like she usually does? I mentioned I was hitting the sack and started sorting my laundry before bed. But as I folded clothes, this uneasy feeling crept up on me. I tried to brush it off, telling myself I was overthinking things. Still, that gut instinct, it's like a sixth sense, you know? It wouldn't let go. I couldn't shake the nagging doubt, so I decided to tiptoe over to the library room and listen at the door. Sure enough, I heard her voice. She was FaceTiming someone. My heart started racing, pounding in my chest. Reading? Yeah, right. I hoped it was just her sister or a friend, but the longer I stood there, the more I could tell it wasn't. The way she was talking, the context, it didn't add up. Here's a bit of background to make sense of this. A couple of weeks ago, my girlfriend worked a festival for her company, paired up with a coworker from another city to manage their booth. She'd described him as friendly but kind of reserved, maybe a bit shy. I even met them both afterward for a quick hangout, and nothing seemed off between them at the time. But now, as I stood there eavesdropping, it was painfully clear she was flirting with whoever was on that call. They were chatting about work, and then she brought up how much fun they'd had that day at the festival. It didn't take a genius to figure out who she was talking to. Apparently, this guy was more than just nice, in her eyes. The longer I listened, the sicker I felt, like I was stuck in some awful dream I couldn't escape. I wanted to walk away, but I had to be sure of what I was hearing. Every word she said made it worse, piling on evidence I didn't want to believe. I could only hear her side of the conversation, but it was bad enough. She'd called this guy shy before, right? If that was true, she was definitely egging him on, leading the charge in their flirty banter. Either that, or the whole shy thing was a complete lie. They were laughing about how playful they'd been at the festival, how they couldn't keep their hands off each other that day. Shy. That didn't sound shy to me. It sounded like a load of nonsense she'd fed me to cover her tracks. Then it got worse. She started talking about what she'd wear for him, gushing over his comments about her outfits, like she was planning something special. My stomach churned. She even played a song for him, one she told me gets her in a certain mood. I could only imagine what she was showing him on that FaceTime call, and it crushed me. My heart felt like it shattered right there in the hallway. Then they started making plans for this Friday. She said she could switch her work shift and even mentioned how she'd come up with an excuse to throw me off. She was plotting to lie to me, right there, while I stood frozen, listening to my world fall apart. That night, I was stunned by how cold and unbothered she seemed. It hit me hard. She didn't show a shred of guilt or regret for what she was doing. There was no sign she cared about how this would hurt me. Worse, it was clear she had no plans to cut things off with this other guy. It felt like she was setting up a new relationship, building something with him while keeping me around until she was ready to make a switch, or maybe even juggling us both. After what felt like forever, over an hour of listening to her on that call, she finally ended it and stepped out of the library room. I was sitting right there outside the door, waiting. She nearly jumped out of her skin when she saw me. I asked her how her reading went, keeping my voice calm. She brushed it off, saying it was fine. I couldn't hold back anymore and told her I'd heard everything. I said we needed to head upstairs to our apartment and figure out what was going on, because my world was spinning. We got to our place, and the drama kicked in fast. I could feel the tension rising, like a storm about to break. First thing, I asked if she'd done anything physical with this guy. She swore up and down that nothing like that had happened. But I'd heard her on the phone, laughing about how they'd been all over each other at that festival. To me, that's physical enough. I kept pushing, not buying her story for a second. Pretty quickly, she flipped the script on me. She claimed our relationship had been rocky for months, that I hadn't been there for her, that we'd lost our spark. Suddenly, I was the one to blame, like I'd pushed her into this mess. She made it sound like she had no choice but to turn to someone else because of me. I was floored. She'd never hinted at these issues before. By her own admission, she struggled to bring up problems or talk things through. That's not how you build a healthy relationship. That's a recipe for chaos, and I was starting to see it clearly. To me, things had seemed normal, even with our clashing work schedules. I always thought if something was wrong, we'd sit down and sort it out together, like adults do. Apparently, that's not how she operated. I wasn't about to let her pin this all on me, so I kept pressing for the truth. She stuck to her story, insisting nothing physical happened and claiming she'd only started talking to this guy a couple of days ago. According to her, he just confessed his feelings, and she admitted she found him attractive. At that point, I didn't even care if they'd crossed that line physically, though, come on, her own words about their handsy festival day said otherwise. The fact that she was making plans with him, scheming to swap shifts for Friday, and plotting to lie to me? That was more than enough. It was over. Still, I had this sinking feeling she was holding back. I asked if she'd told me everything, and she swore she had. No way was I buying that. She was dodging something big. So, I casually picked up her phone from the table and said that if she was being honest, she wouldn't mind me checking her messages with this guy. Her reaction was instant. She leaped up, demanding I hand it back. I told her she could either come clean about what she was hiding or I'd look for myself. We went back and forth, her desperation growing. Finally, she blurted out that it was just an emotional connection, and that reading her messages would be embarrassing for her. If there was nothing to hide, why the panic? But honestly, it didn't even matter anymore. I already knew she was betraying my trust. There was no coming back from that. I kept at it, asking if she'd been texting him too, trying to figure out what else she was keeping from me. After more dodging, she admitted she'd been messaging him as well. Every question I asked peeled back another layer of half-truths, and each answer was worse than the last. It was like she was feeding me just enough to shut me up, hoping I'd stop digging. But the story kept shifting, and I knew I wasn't getting the full picture. It's wild how these situations play out the same way so often, just human nature, I guess. I pressed harder, asking what else she was hiding, but she just clammed up. Eventually, she apologized and said she needed to sleep because of work the next day. I was exhausted, emotionally drained from the whole ordeal, so I gave up and handed her phone back. Part of me wanted to keep fighting, to demand answers, but I was just done. She'd worn me down, and I could tell that's exactly what she wanted. Now it's nearly 6 a.m, and I'm typing this out to clear my head. It's helping a little, keeping my mind off the pain for a moment. But reality's sinking in. We've got 4 months left on our apartment lease, and I'm stuck wondering how to handle that. Thank goodness we kept most of our finances separate, except for a home savings account we both put money into. I'd been investing it for our future, but I'm planning to send her back her share and call it done. Mixing money like that with a girlfriend was a mistake, I see that now. Marriage is one thing, but this? Never again. Looking back, I realized we'd been sharing that home savings account, which was a big mistake. I should have kept things separate, maybe just had one joint account for shared bills like rent or utilities, nothing more. First thing in the morning, I knew I had to protect my money. I couldn't risk her having access to that account and draining it before I could sort things out. My plan was to pull my share out, move it to my own account, and send her back what she'd put in, just to keep things fair and clean. Financially, I could probably cover the lease on my own, but it'd be a stretch. I wouldn't be able to keep saving like I'd been doing, and it'd put me in a tight spot. As for her, I doubted she could afford a place by herself, but honestly, that wasn't my concern anymore. With 4 months left on our lease, I had to figure out a way forward. Either she needed to move out, or I did. Staying together in that apartment would be unbearable, like living in a constant storm of tension. If it meant taking a hit, I'd crash with a friend, my brother, or maybe my parents for a bit. I could look for a smaller place, maybe a studio, something affordable so I could still save a little each month. Whatever it took, I couldn't stay there with her, it'd be torture. My emotions were all over the place, a jumble of anger, heartbreak, and disbelief. I never imagined our relationship would crash and burn like this, or that she could betray me so deeply. It was hard to process that I wasn't alone in this. Countless guys have felt this exact same pain, blindsided by someone they trusted. What stung even more was how she kept acting like everything was fine while sneaking around behind my back. I couldn't believe for a second that nothing physical happened with that guy. The way she described their flirty festival day, laughing about how touchy they'd been, plus her hints about things that got her in the mood, it all pointed to more than she was letting on. That was the toughest pill to swallow, knowing she was hiding the full truth. When I tried to check her phone, she snatched it back so fast, I'm almost certain she deleted every shred of evidence right after. There was no way I'd ever get the whole story from her, and chasing it felt like a waste of energy. What baffled me was how she could claim she was sorry, saying she felt awful, while still dodging questions and guarding her secrets. That wasn't remorse, she was just upset she got caught, frustrated her plans got derailed. I'd bet anything she'd already wiped her messages and changed her passwords to cover her tracks. I was desperate for advice, open to any wisdom that could help me make sense of this mess. If anyone had questions or thought I was missing something, I was ready to dig deeper. Our lease ran until July 31st, and both our names were on it. I could take it over if she moved out, but that'd strain my budget more than I'd like. The other option was leaving myself, but I had to be careful. If I stayed and paid my share while she slacked off, or if I left and she stopped paying altogether, it could tank my credit. My name was tied to that lease, and any mispayments could come back to haunt me. Ideally, she'd move out, maybe even crash with that guy she was so cozy with, but I had a feeling she wouldn't budge easily. Living with her after this was a non-starter. It'd be miserable, like walking on eggshells every day. If I had to, I'd find a buddy to stay with for a few months, hunt for a cheaper place, and rebuild from there. This chapter was done, and as much as it hurt, I had to move on. Those 3 years felt like a waste now, though I couldn't deny there'd been some good moments. Still, I started wondering how long she'd been dishonest, not just with this guy, but maybe others too. She was so good at pretending everything was normal, it made me question everything. One thing I knew for sure, I had to take control of the story. If I got along with my family, I'd tell them what really happened before she could spin it her way. I could already imagine her telling her mom and sister some twisted version, painting me as the bad guy, saying I didn't listen or communicate, and that's why she had to step out. I wasn't about to let her rewrite history like that. Her whole playbook, the denials, the blame shifting, the panic over her phone, it was like a script I'd seen play out in so many stories like mine. All I could do now was wish myself luck and vow never to take her back, no matter what. As I sit here piecing this all together, my head's spinning with what to do next. I'm staring down 4 months left on this lease, and figuring out whether I should try to get her to move out or find a way to leave myself is weighing heavy on me. Part of me wants to make sense of the betrayal, to understand how I missed the signs for so long, but mostly I just want to move forward. That's where I could really use some help from you all. If you've been through something like this, catching someone you trusted pulling the rug out from under you, what got you through it? How did you handle the practical stuff, like untangling a lease or splitting up shared accounts? I'm open to any advice you've got, whether it's about protecting my peace, sorting out the finances, or just finding a way to start fresh. If there's something I'm not seeing, maybe a step I should take or a mistake to avoid, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop your insights in the comments, and I'll do my best to chime in if you've got questions about my situation. Your wisdom could make a big difference as I figure out my next move.